Dr. Chopra, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Now, Dr. Chopra, for people who may not be familiar with your work, you're an esteemed scientist, you're obviously a doctor. Can you get into your background briefly, just so people understand your expertise, and then we'll get into our current concerns?
I am originally a veterinarian and a vaccine expert. Then I came to Canada more than 50 years ago to study at McGill University, where I did my master's and PhD in microbiology. I'm a fellow of the World Health Organization on vaccines. And then I worked at Health Canada for 35 years as a senior scientific advisor for the regulatory compliance of foods, drugs, vaccines, both for people and for food-producing animals. That was my job for 35 years. And as a result of what I did, my concerns that were expressed, and the department didn't quite appreciate what I was doing because they just wanted me to sign off, and I wouldn't. And eventually, 35 years later, they dismissed me for insubordination and with two other scientists. I'm still in court fighting after all these years. Don't know how long it'll go on, but these cases that I'm fighting, they're basically not mine in a sense that I'm not fighting for a job. These are the public service, public health, and the damage being done to public health as a result of approval of these products, which under the law are not permitted. And so the government has spent more than $10 million fighting me and still going on. And so that's what it is. Governments all over the world have now become that way, and people don't matter. People don't know how to protect their health, what foods to eat, what vaccines, what drugs to take. So they're actually creating patients for life from very early childhood by giving vaccines, then wrong foods, and then from the time from cradle to grave, people will remain patients. They won't die suddenly, some do in this case, but then the second assault comes by giving them drugs and devices and all that. So it's become a big business of the corporations. Countries, as a result of what's happening, are going to go bankrupt. The United States, for example, now spends 20% of its GDP on healthcare. In Ontario, 50% of the budget is for healthcare. So if we keep on, and if the US is spending twice as much money than any other developed country, but they're not living longer, they're the sickest people on earth right now, and they're spending all this money, and it's all money going to corporations, drug companies, and the same drug and food companies, it's all the same now. Anyway, they're all corporations. And as a result, the countries will go bankrupt if they don't back off. Right now, it doesn't seem they're going to back off. The now assault of all this is being pushed into the next giants, China and India, and they have become party to it. Time will tell how far it goes, but in India, for example, 275,000 farmers have committed suicide by drinking pesticides because they can't afford any of this. That is the kind of world that we are now have entered.
But Dr. Chopra, you've set up a paradigm where corporations are influencing governments, and then governments and their regulatory bodies are making bad decisions that affect our bodies and our health and our lifestyles. And essentially what you're saying is, by giving us vaccines and by giving us poison as opposed to organic food, to simplify things, they are making us sick so that we are sick for our entire lives, and we need to take more medicines from the same companies.
Yes.
So there's a profit motive when it comes to this.
Yes.
So that's the paradigm. Within this paradigm, here at the Total Health Show, what would you suggest to a family out there when it comes to making smarter health choices?
I think it's gone beyond your personal choices. There is a movement all over the world now called the Occupy movement. It's happening in New York, it happens in Egypt, it's erupting all over the place. People right now don't exactly know what's hurting them, but they know something is hurting them, and it's always the power structures. The power now is what is called intellectual property right. That is the power. The companies say, I have an idea, good or bad, false or true. Through that idea, I want to control you, I want to control your food, I want to control your body. And so therefore, my solution to this is there will be ultimately a revolution, because I want to occupy my body. I want them to deoccupy my body. Just leave here, leave me alone. I'm a product of nature. I'm a citizen of a country. It's my constitutional right, it's my divine right to live and feed myself and my family that nature makes, God if you like. So what's happening is against the fundamental rights of humanity by a bunch of corporations and corrupt politicians. They're going to have to get out of the way. Not long ago, so far they've been able to deflect, it's this Al-Qaeda or this communism or Hitler or this or that. But now we in the world, we are just one huge power, and that's the corporations. People are going to rebel against them because the world has become saturated with this. The world population is going to come to a saturation point in the next few years. They're frightening us, these corporations are frightening us that there will be a shortage of food, there's a shortage of energy, there's a shortage of everything. They're creating this shortage of everything. There's no shortage of any of this. We are heading toward that kind of a world revolution. It won't be violent, it doesn't have to be violent. I actually have a solution. As far as food is concerned, instead of, you see there's a revolution in education going on too. The corporations are pushing everybody to go to university. And when you come out of the university, there's no job. That's a phenomenon all over the world. People can't afford that kind of education. And I'm saying it's totally unnecessary. We need basic education, which is the school education. So what should happen is that all education must be given around growing food on school playgrounds. Every subject must be taught around growing food. They will learn how to count, they will learn what the beans are, how they sprout, they will learn how to do computer inputs, they will learn soil chemistry, they'll learn biology. This is not a new idea. This was something that Mahatma Gandhi wrote about back. It was called new education. It wasn't even new education. This is the way people used to be educated before. This is the way schools used to be run before. He called it new education because he was fighting off the British power, British industrial power. What we now see is the end point of the industrial revolution that began in Europe. And that has spread all over. Everybody's copying. That industrial revolution brought prosperity. Well, it brought prosperity, but also death to the earth. That's where we're heading. So I think that's what's going to happen sooner or later. Deoccupy. Let me reoccupy my body. I'm in charge of my children. I'm in charge of my own body. So get out of here.
I completely understand. And Gandhi also advocated for homespun, where instead of picking the cotton in India and sending it to England to get the shirts made and then sending them back to India so we pay more for them, make your own, grow your own, do your own, learn the process, make sure the process is decentralized so it can't be controlled by corporations and banks and institutions that want to manage people with a centralized process.
The world has been taken over by corporations. A few, 8 or 10 corporations. These corporations are so huge, they control food production, the whole food industry, the slaughterhouses, the drug industries, and the vaccine industry. Vaccines effectively were introduced in around 1943 onwards. polio came in the 50s. Then others, rubella, etc., they were introduced in the 70s. Some of those vaccines went through my hands while I was working at Health Canada. And I was against them, but I had no proof that they will do harm. I had also no proof that they won't protect. So they got approved. My bosses were pressing. And so, but now, 40 years later, we know that 100% of the populations have been vaccinated, revaccinated, boosted, and so on. And every now and then there's an outbreak of measles or mumps or rubella and so on. And why? That means we didn't provide protection. Now they're saying whooping cough is not protecting. And then adults should take those same. Or university students should get more of rubella and mumps and measles. That means vaccines didn't work. And now they're saying, well, they're coming back, maybe the immigrants are bringing. That's ridiculous. How can immigrants bring a foreign agent when your own population is completely protected? Then that shouldn't have any effect. So therefore, it's not even logical. The president of the United States, first it was Bush, now Obama, going up on stage and declaring national emergency, that flu is coming, a pandemic is coming. The word pandemic has become sort of this is a pandemic strain. Pandemic has never happened. Why are you calling it pandemic? Pandemic means all over the world. But there's one case they're calling it pandemic strain. So that means the governments, the philanthropists like Bill Gates, the medical profession, the media, they all are on one side. And nobody dares speak up. Vaccines are produced in unnatural media. They're produced in monkey kidney or human fetal cells or now insect cells. Or
right. People who read a can of soup label to see the fat and salt content and so on should really read what's in vaccines before they...
70 or 80 materials in them. Because those, then there's chicken broth, there's beef broth, there's pig serum, there's gelatin, there's all kinds of things, fish oil, and then formalin, cancer causing. Then there are heavy metals like aluminum, mercury. All these products are going along with the vaccine into the child. And so when you give an injection of a vaccine, it explodes inside like a cluster bomb. And those ingredients go and hit all parts and all organs and glands of the body. Whatever comes in the way gets knocked out. And if your pancreas comes in the way, you get diabetes. If it's your brain, you get autism and various other diseases, thyroid, and obesity. And then cancer over on top. All these diseases used to be rare. Autism used to be 1 in 10,000. Now it's 1 in 50. Now, where is it all coming from? Vaccines are doing it. And then coupled with bad foods over on top, energy drinks, all these things are coming from all sides at the human body, from birth to death. It is your right to take or not take the vaccine. If somebody forces you, whether it's your medical profession, whether it's a government, whether it's a hospital, or whether it's a school board, if anybody forces or tries to say you have to take the vaccine, otherwise you can't send your child to school, you can't work in this job, you can't be a nurse, tell them, put it in writing, nothing will happen to me, then I have the right to sue you all. It will stop.
Dr. Chopra, hopefully we can pick this up again, but I sincerely appreciate your time and your insights. And again, 35 years working at Health Canada, working as a fellow at the World Health Organization, and still critique of many of these big institutions and associated corporations. This is certainly somebody we should listen to, shivchopra.com. Dr. Shiv Chopra, thank you very much for your time.
It's all described in here.
Corrupt to the core, with our picture of our parliament.